Thank you all for coming to this special screening of Under Milkwood here at Chapter. Could you give a big round of applause for the director of the film, Kevin Allen? So, just to kind of jump in, do you remember the first time you experienced Under Milkwood? Did you read it or hear it or see it? Do you know what that
I was aware of it as a kid.
Right.
I don't think we didn't do it for O-level, but it was around at school.
Yeah.
I was in the Western Morgan Youth Theatre. They did it. I didn't do it with them, but they did it the year after. So I was very aware of it. I was aware of Darren Thomas.
Yeah.
Because my aunt's farm in Carmarthenshire was very close to Third Hill. He was demonised around there. So I was aware of them as a kid.
Right.
And life went by and we kind of demonised him as part of the Twin Town kind of Welsh cliche kind of package. You know, he was just another sort of Welsh cliche we put in with all the others. You know, then 18 years on, was grow up and have children and mature. So yeah, that was it really. I mean, I was only aware of him again really in Ireland when I was farming, where I've been for 9 years. You know, Ireland went belly up.
Yeah.
You know, I decided to re-engage with the film industry and relocate the family to Wales. We were thinking of something nice and juicy and Welsh and iconic to do. And DT 100 was coming up, so we thought, give it a go.
Okay. So
I'm the kind of big fan of, you know, I am now.
Yeah.
You know, I've got very close to his work and not just doing this, but also making a documentary about him. So I wasn't like a Dylan freak that needed to do. You know, it just felt like the right thing to do at the right time.
And so was that when, I mean, in deciding to do it as a film project, was that the first time you really gone into the text and really kind of taken a look at it? And
absolutely, and it's something I've seen quite a few times. I saw a National Theatre production with Reesin actually.
Right.
Jean Michel, I think, directed it. It's pretty good.
Right.
It's the only one I've liked.
Okay.
By a long way. I mean, you know, the theatrical renditions. I mean, you know, people go on about it being a radio play and it shouldn't be this and it shouldn't be that. I mean, of all the genres, I think it shouldn't be a theatre. Right. Okay. To be honest, unless you got a load of dough to, you know, be magical.
Yeah.
It's just kind of set on a stage and it's like, well, it's fairly dull. It's never really alluded to the erotica, the bawdiness. So that's a challenge. That's something I wanted to bring out.
And was there something in that stage production that you could sort of pinpoint that they did right, or they
No, it was just a distant memory. You know,
okay.
It's 18 years ago, 19 years ago.
Okay.
We were quite, you know, enjoying it. It was well produced and it was well mounted, and you know, the National put a bit of money into it, so really, you know, high production value.
Yeah.
Then I've seen others that are just grim.
Yeah.
I mean, deadly. You know, deadly grim.
Yeah.
And kind of puerile in a way, you know.
Right.
It's what I call Mrs. Welsh cake approach, you know. Sex, you know, it's just, it's all there.
Yeah.
And it's a matter of taste as to how much, you know, you bring out, lead to the imagination, of course.
So do you feel? I mean, that's one sort of one of the many notable aspects of the film is sort of embracing the sexual aspects of it. Do you feel like you're just sort of mining what's already there, or do you feel like you're adding to it? Or
it's just a journey. I mean, I took it on face value. I mean, you know, I approached it as a movie. I wasn't really interested in what had been before.
Yeah.
You know, when I got Murray Lackland Young on board to co-write the screenplay, Murray's a poet in his own right. He's very passionate about visualising poetry, so he seemed like a good choice, and I'd hired him for some other stuff. He brought Michael Breen on board, who's a sort of a guru, if you like, of symbolism. We decided, before Reese, myself, Murray and Michael, when we recce'd the whole project, to mount it in a dreamscape.
Right.
We just didn't want to, we just felt it suffered so much from its unorthodox structure. I mean, going back to it being labelled, I mean, we've been really fortunate with press. Maybe 75% positive, 25% negative. We were expecting more Marmite, 50-50.
Right.
But the negative approach is really fixated with this, you know, it was meant to be a radio play. I can tell you now, it's not a radio play.
Yeah.
You know, and I'll argue that to the cows come home. It is not a radio play. It was a piece of work. It's a genre anomaly, in that, you know, he was skint. He'd been working on this piece of you know, prose poetry fusion for a long time, stitching it together. Other pieces of work that he'd worked on, like the Town That Went Mad, was, you know, in a very dystopian piece.
Yeah.
He needed the dough. I mean, he had a mate at the BBC. He sent the manuscript in with a little note on top saying, something for voices, perhaps. You know, the BBC branded it as a radio play. I mean, I can tell you now, if I took, I don't care whether it was written by Dylan Thomas or T.S. Eliot, and went to a radio commissioning editor, Radio 4, and said, will you bung that on the radio? I know what they would say.
Yeah.
No way. It's just 2.5 hours long, mate, and it's what is it? Because structurally, it's all over the place. He was very lucky at the time that he was on the up as a poet. Burton was around, so there was a bit of a celebrity thing, you know, even then, that fixation with celebrity. So for it to be, you know, just branded as a radio play is, you know, unfortunate in a way that the doubters are just stuck to that kind of labelling, really.
Right.
It's what you want it to be. I wanted to make a piece of cinema.
Yeah.
This is a film, that's my business.
Yeah.
You know, so I took the piece. It was a huge joy for me as a filmmaker to embrace something that just isn't shackled by the, you know, the 3-act classic structure of filmmaking now is so staid and formularized. You know, to have something as raw material that just doesn't have that structure. You know, it's all over the place.
Yeah.
It's one of those, you know, when I read it quite a few times, like, wow, hang on, you have to go back a bit, and so we did a bit of editing. We didn't play with the text,
Yeah.
you know, apart from editing it to make it move in a forward direction. That's why we chopped out some characters. Jack Black. Oh God.
Well, if you
cut glass, you know. I mean,
if you don't remember, then they were well cut. So.
Yeah, I mean, so then we had the narrative. You know, what's the first voice doing?
Yeah.
What was he doing? What were they doing in the first film?
Yeah.
Walking around mute in trench coats. I mean, and we didn't want to do that. We wanted to make something of the first voice. So that's why we combined Captain Cat and first voice and made it all a dream. That's why we brought Michael in, who's an expert on the subconscious and symbolism, existentialism, all the isms.
Yeah.
Michael's expert, and he kept us grounded.
Yeah.
Because you could go bonkers with that.
Yeah, and it's
everything you see in that film in terms of symbolism is there for a reason. And if you buy the DVD, you'll have a nice glossary of terms, symbolism terms. Everything, every single thing that you think why, will be explained in terms of what Michael brought to.
Right. And as you were getting sort of Michael and Murray and Reese as well, like involved, was there like one sort of common sort of pitch or mission that you would say to them, like, this is what we're doing, this is what the plan is? Or?
No, once we decided on that
very
important decision, it's all a dream. Within a dream, within a dream. Combine Captain Cat because it's Captain Cat's subconscious.
Yeah.
Work there. We felt that was the right decision. Then I got on with prepping the film. And then it was a case of working out my palette. And, you know, working out the tone of the movie. As I started to bring in heads of department, production designer, music played a huge part in.
Okay.
Mark Thomas is someone I've worked with all along, 20 years now. I always felt this as a piece of music,
right,
as well as a visual banquet.
Yeah.
You know, I really wanted it to be visual, believe you me.
Of course,
At the same time, music, I wanted to be drenched in music, because I heard music in text. You know, I did the guides for, you know, we tempt a lot of the stuff before shooting.
Yeah.
Like there's the piece where the community become a flower. That's an 8.5 minute sequence of first voice. That's a lot of filming, believe me. I mean, so I did the guides, and we had that beat, and you know, music was so important to how I approached it as a piece of cinema.
And that music you would sort of share with your collaborators, and were there bits of sort of visual art you would sort of use as references, or
yeah,
sort of
yeah. I just develop a mood board
right, okay.
here, there, and everywhere. You know, paintings.
Yeah.
I always, you know, before making a movie, I make a point of not watching television drama
Okay.
for at least 3 or 4 months. It's toxic. Well, it is for a filmmaker.
Yeah.
You know, it's you know, Danny Boyle gave me that tip before Twin Town. You know, it's very pervasive, television drama. It's got a rhythm and a vernacular that's very subconsciously, you know, if you want to make a piece of cinema, and people say, what's the difference? And I always say, if you don't know, work it out for yourselves, you know, watch cinema, you'll see the difference. So, you know, what I did was I just absorbed a lot of great film. You know, I knew with my budget I couldn't afford, you know, major CGI, and I'm not a fan of CGI anyway.
Yeah.
I was into an analog periodness.
Yeah.
So I just absorbed a lot of Buñuel, early Hitchcock, Tarkovsky, some really weird Russian filmmakers, Japanese. I watched Twin Peaks a couple of times.
Yeah.
You know, Lynch is very analog.
Yeah.
He's not clever dick with like CGI and stuff. It's about characterization and a sort of off-centeredness that I really liked. But I didn't sit there with a notepad going, oh, I'm going to have a bit of that and a bit of that, and you know, I just absorbed film, classic film,
absorbing the right kind of
the period.
Yeah.
Of, you know, there's really simple analog techniques that just, you know, Vaseline on the lens, you know, prism rods either side of the matte box, simple lock-offs, really simple early analog filmmaking techniques. So that just seeps through, and then you start palette, you know, colour. I saw a Technicolor film, you know, because we had particularly good weather in Pembrokeshire.
I was going to say, like, especially from
even
today.
Even in
know.
prep, you see, you know, it was like, for me, it was like the Riviera.
Yeah.
Like the Côte d'Azur, and I saw Sophie Loren in a open top convertible, and you know, I don't know which film. It doesn't matter. That I just had this imagery of the Riviera.
Yeah.
And same with the music. I heard French classic orchestration, and then we brought in the sort of, you know, the pagan elements. So it's really important to this as part of the palette, you know, and not strictly 1952. So it's just somewhere around there, you know. So then, you know, you start working with you know, your designer, your costume designer, DP comes on board, and gradually it starts to think, wow, you know, we're getting somewhere here, and then the prose is the nightmare of this piece. You know, it's where prose meets poetry.
Yeah.
In a way, the poetry looks after itself. It's very deep, you know. And you know, I really think this is Under Milk Wood is a reflection of the man himself, of the dichotomy of a very complicated man who was fighting, you know, himself all the time. On one hand, he aspired to literary respectability, greatness, Bloomsbury, etc. On the other hand, he inhabited barroom debauchery. That's, you know, so there's this sort of, you know, the more you get into this piece of work, it's that dichotomy is there all the time. With prose, it's very domesticated. It's really domesticated, quite puerile at times, really bawdy.
Yeah.
Really childish. I mean, really, you know, you start isolating those prose pieces like Mrs. Osmond Pritchard, Cherry Owens. You know, they're the key to the film in a way.
Right.
If you don't get them working, because that's a long piece.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh my God, it was all going so well, and then you get the actors in. What are we going to do here? You know, it's a long time casting, obviously, and that's where the faggots and peas and sex and filth and of course they're the bottom. They're the common denominator of it all, really. They're the couple who love each other no matter what, through thick and thin, drunk, sober, filth. You know, that's tough.
Right.
You know, and that's where the animated. I wanted the prose to be animated, and it's also why I chose quite a lot of inexperienced actors, some
Right.
of them non-actors even.
Yeah.
Because for me, they offered a vulnerability and a sort of lack of technique that I really like.
Yeah.
I find British actors suffer, they can be over technical,
Right.
too good if in a way.
Yeah.
I didn't want realism.
No.
You know.
And you've got like a lot of actors you worked with before. I mean,
Oh,
there's Rhys and Claire and William Thomas and
Yeah, Sue Roderick.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I mean, presumably with some of them, that's the first time you've worked with them since Twin Town. Like, is that not,
Yeah, but at the same time, I had to hire 48 first language Welsh actors because we made a Welsh version.
Yeah.
So, I wasn't shackled by what I call film for jigsaw casting.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think people realise how long it takes to develop a movie sometimes. It can be 3-4 year howl. Sell the idea, and then you get a casting process going, and quite often before you know it, that jigsaw culture has convinced you that Keira Knightley should play Polygata. And so many filmmakers just want to get their film made, so they was kid themselves, and so suddenly everything's just the original visceral approach is lost. With this, I had to have a first language Welsh ensemble, which is fantastic. So I could just do away with all that.
So it's always just freeing and
fantastic, because they're great actors, terrific actors.
Yeah, yeah.
Who don't work, unfortunately. So they should. People like Will Thomas, Sue Roderick. I mean, Nia. I mean, they're really good actors.
Yeah.
But then tempered by Verona Jones, opera singer stroke butcher. She beat some really top actresses to that.
Yeah.
The kid who plays Willy Nilly Postman kind of steals the show for me. Really inexperienced actor. But he's got this vulnerability that I think suits the animation, the cartooniness of the prose.
And just speaking about the bilingual.
Sorry,
No, it's fine. It's really easy for me.
I'm droning.
No, we're talking about the bilingual nature of the project. How did that come about? Whose idea was it to do it?
It's called soft money.
Okay.
It's half your budget.
Yeah.
It's half your budget paid for.
Yeah. And how did you shoot the two versions?
Right. Fairly straightforward.
Okay.
More straightforward than shooting the likes of Hinterland.
Right.
It's procedural, cross shooting.
Yeah.
It's a nightmare because you're cross shooting, you're cross editing. So it's really time consuming. This has so much voiceover in.
Yeah.
It's not that impactful. So, and then when you're shooting, it's just these actors are incredible. They just English, Welsh, English, Welsh, English, Welsh.
Right.
It's easy.
I was wondering, like, I don't know if it's probably kind of a naive question, but at what stage did you record, especially Rhys's main voiceover? Because it's so, the normal thing would be to do it later, but it so sets the
as
tone.
tough as making the movie.
Yeah, yeah. So is that all done afterwards?
Yeah.
Because it feels like it sets that rhythm
I
of it.
picture locked the movie.
Right.
A few things altering, length. That's all, because the Welsh is generally, Rhys describes doing the Welsh version as chewing on a bag of Scrabble, because the Welsh is so difficult.
Right. Okay.
Even for first language Welsh speakers, it's really Eisteddfodau, Bardic, Crackhack Welsh.
Yeah.
And that was tough for him.
Yeah.
So the Welsh one's done, and then the English one, probably 3 weeks. I mean, long days where you probably only find the sweet spot maybe for an hour and a half.
Right.
You don't just read this stuff.
No.
You have to build up to it. You go back over it. That's a lot of post-production.
Yeah.
And really difficult, to get that sweet spot. The timbre of the voice.
Yeah. And was it in
Did you like Rhys's voice?
It's incredible, isn't it? Like,
I mean, you've got to remember, Burton's shoes are a fair set of boots to fill, and we were really determined to bring it back to Wales and de-anglicise it, bring it back from the RSC.
It's a different kind of production, different kind of voicing,
It's
isn't
totally
it? Because completely different from Richard
It's
Burton,
totally different.
who's very sonorous and
Totally. That was of its time and of its generation. Even Dylan Thomas, orated in that, received BBC style. It was the style of the time. Oh, so, you know, that's.
I have to say, you have to thank the BBC for having created a radio play, a radio event, which actually lodged itself in the nation's memory forever.
Absolutely.
And Richard Burton, of course, because I mean it was iconic. I mean, I remember hearing it. I know I was a child, and I remember hearing it. And then we had a '78 record of it in the house.
A lot of people remember it.
And it has stayed in the nation's consciousness ever since. And you have to thank them for that, actually, for having done it really. And actually, there was very little opportunity for film at that time, or television.
Yeah, I mean, Thomas was a multimedia animal, without any shadow of doubt. You know, he was already connecting with the likes of bilingual. He was already talking to Stravinsky. Had he lived, he would have connected with all those mediums. Sure.
And then you may have had a film made out of it eventually. But he died.
No. I mean, you know, one of my real wishes, throughout this entire journey was, I just really wanted to do something that I thought he would be really intrigued with, as a poet and as a person. I'd find myself wondering what he would think of this.
And would you
rather
like,
than anyone else?
Would you like him to be sort of surprised or satisfied, or what's your
I'd
idea?
like to enjoy it.
Yeah.
It's like to enjoy it.
Yeah.
It's not. it's not life and death. This stuff. It's a fairly light piece of work, and with some very deep poetry as well.
Yeah.
But it's an incredible, dichotomy of.
Yeah.
I mean, he was a bastard at times. Even in the writing, where he'd stick a fag butt in an egg yolk.
Right.
I mean, you get to that denouement of the film. The writing that leads up to that ending, it's beautiful. He comes up with the chimney song. Most puerile, bawdy. It's like, I nearly cut it, and that's what we ended up doing with it. I enjoyed what we did with it at the end, because we just had to push it out. But, narratively, my God, what are you doing?
Yeah.
You created this beautiful poetry, the innocence of man, and oh my God, Chimberley, shagging. Jesus Christ, what are you doing?
Yeah.
What do you do with it? And of course, that's something you see in the theatre, and it's like, oh God, painful. So we kept it in anyway.
Yeah.
It's a Christmas song.
It's nice, yeah. And I mean, speaking of which, you've had a long life with this in the sense it's been almost a year since the Welsh language version came out. So even it played here about a year ago, didn't it? So, what's your experience been sort of having this film out in the world, and you're still kind of out with it now? Like, what have you heard from audiences?
Well, we did a huge preview summer season, because we wanted to release at the end of the centenary. We really wanted this is like a 3 or 4 year burn in terms of theatrical, Blu-ray, everything. It isn't the kind of thing we just bung on for a week and see how it does. It's got all sorts of possibilities. So we played it to a counterculture festival audience over the summer. I toured a little on the Milkwood Caravan, and we played the trailer inside it. Latitude, Green Man, Port Elliot Festival number 6 to 2,000 people. I remastered the film in 3-dimensional audio, which was a world cinema premiere. That's a fantastic experience. I won't go into how it works, but it's amazing. Sound just coming from everywhere. In the piazza at Port Marion, with a male-voice choir and sopranos. And that's a prelude to, I always saw this as more than just a movie in the future. We just played at the Cork Film Festival. They'd like us to come back next year to the Opera House with a Philharmonic Orchestra. I can easily remaster this for a 30-piece orchestra, 100-piece orchestra, 100-piece male voice choir, so that the sound can fly in, fly out. So it's like a kind of trippy piece of theatre, film, whatever, I don't know what you call it, event cinema.
Event seems to be the word we're having on.
So that's the feature.
Yeah.
It's quite expensive.
Yeah.
But it does have because it's a classical, it's regarded as a classical piece of work.
Yeah.
It's just about re-engaging an audience, people who don't know what it is.
Yes, I'm aware there are some.
You know, well, it's been swept under the carpet for a long time. I mean, it's been great playing this to an audience who don't care who he is. I mean, you got to remember he was one of the first beat poets. You know, he was huge in the consciousness of 50s and 60s rockers. You know, they're hearing the music. They're hearing. There's kids, they're not kids, but youngsters on a bong, watching this at a festival, and they're getting a different trip from this. Yeah. And also artists. We've played it to a lot of artists, and another kind of way of answering your question, testing who this appeals to. People who, they're not theatre goers, they're certainly not theatre goers, they're artists who, they see this as art, not just, a film or radio play or theatre.
And have there been other sort of surprises like that in terms of, for you, like finding how people respond to it, or the kind of people that respond to it, or the scenes or moments that resonate? Is that something you've sort of noticed? That
No, they've all been such different environments. You know, the most common one has been that people want to go and either see it again, experience it again, but most importantly, go and read him. So, to inspire, a new audience to go and check this guy's work out.
Yeah.
Because he's the most translated poet in the English language in the world, bar T.S. Eliot. So he's a really important poet.
Yeah.
I mean, that poem's read at every funeral.
Yeah.
Rage Against the Dying of the Mind.
And of course, Fernhill. I mean, but there's so many other works in there that you can go and take a look at.
And I mean, obviously, like any film is a bigger undertaking, and then a bilingual film is an even bigger undertaking. But the way you're talking about it, it sounds like this is going to be a big part of your professional life going forward as well.
I've got time. On to the next.
You're on to the next thing. Okay.
Well, no.
Yeah.
We have to go to LA
Yeah.
for this Oscar thing, which is a good shot in the arm. But
yeah. So for those who don't know, this is the UK's sort of submission for the
UK submission for foreign language Oscars.
Yeah. Which
so we have to go and play it over there. And,
so you're doing it in Welsh over there then, is it?
yeah, because it's for foreign language.
Yeah, so it's going to be Welsh.
Can I ask about the locations? Because the original location for Under Milkwood was 15 miles away in Fishguard.
Yeah, one of them, yeah.
Yeah, one of them. But for the Richard Burton one, the vast majority of stuff was done in Lower Town.
Yeah.
So, was it a coincidence, or did you actually go there specifically because of the environment?
Go where?
To Solva,
for
your film.
No, it's just a part of a recce. I played around with a caravan site under Milkwood, a post-industrial Milkwood, Britain Ferry, Bury Port. I toyed with all sorts of, environs, and you could really, it's really about a small community. Where I farmed in Ireland, our village not dissimilar to Llaregged, facade of respectability, all sorts underneath. So no, we just happened. We went to Solva and it felt right. It just felt fantastic. Cheers.
Thanks very much.
It felt claustrophobic. Fantastic community. I would make a point of embedding myself early doors to try and get a community on board. That community is very much in this film. Its soul, its spirit. Again, it's Llaregged-like.
Yeah. And
I mean, bonkers.
And you've got a really big cast.
They won't mind me saying that.
You've got a really big cast as well, so presumably you need to make a community out of them as
absolutely.
well.
I mean, you have to get, in the time we had,
Yeah.
you've got to get a community on board.
Were they your extras?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I think we shipped in a few nudies.
Right.
I don't know where.
Get me the nudies, and then
Benidorm.
yeah,
Yeah.
and then they come. No. So does anyone have any more questions? I think we probably should
Yeah.
kick out in a second. But is there another one? No. No. Well, I'm going to thank you for coming.
You're
and
welcome.
Congratulations.
Lovely. Thank you for watching.
And
Buy the DVD for Christmas.
yeah, and you watch both versions as well. So.